Hey guys and girls, Nathan here from the Be Invested headquarters. Just wanted to do a video on how to retire in the GFD/scamdemic, global financial depression. Talking about the GFD since 2017. A lot of people thought, woohoo, Nathan lost his mind due to the fact of what he was talking about. People thinking interest rates are going to go up. Interest rates, I said, would come down. I was talking about that would see deflationary period via the property markets, which people go, why would you talk about property in a negative way when you should be talking it up? Well, I was just saying things as they were. Talked about universal basic income. Here we are, everyone get JobKeeper, JobSeeker. Everyone's getting stimulus packages galore. We are in a very interesting time. This period of time is very similar to when I retired from the workforce at the age of 24. 25 properties in 2009. I have over 200 properties now in 2020 and always trying to accumulate more. So how can we retire in the GFD? A lot of people are asking, property prices, will they go down? It's a good question. I'm going to make lots of videos about this sort of lot of topics. But I want to talk about some very simple numbers. Just remembering, none of this is financial advice. I'm not your financial advisor, and I'm here just talking about strategies that have worked for myself. So with what we've got here, let's assume that you've got $2 million worth of debt. There's a lot of haters out there at the moment, a lot of people with fucking tinfoil hats and whatnot, and it's important to navigate through that. At the end of the day, there's a lot more vested interest into these markets than you or I, or all of us collectively. We've got to remember that we are human capital of the banks. The banks, we're their slaves, we're their debt slaves, and they need us to be functioning well for their business model to keep going. So reality is if the market tanks, and collapses, us as their human capital can't pay their mortgages, then they don't have a business model either. For us at the moment, if we look at how this all affects to mainstream and mum and dad, where we are. Let's say you've got $2 million worth of debt. The interest rate is 5%, and it was 1.5% at the RBA. Let's say that now it's at 0.25%, and it is 3.5% at the banks. Some people are getting rates at 2% level and whatnot, but let's just use this as an example. Rates could possibly go to negative 2% to negative 3%. That's my target range. I've called it for that for the last 4 years, because I calculated the level of liquidity in the system and realized that something has to give. I'll make a second video on this to talk about how property prices could still go up after the collapse of this system. So with it, $2 million, let's assume that you've got 10 properties and they're worth 200 grand a piece. All right? 10 properties at 200K. A lot of people said, why do you want to buy 10 properties at 200 grand for? Because if 200 grand turns into 400 grand, that means that you make 200K profit on that front. If you've got $2 million worth of debt, let's just assume that $2 million worth of debt at a 5% interest rate would be $100,000 per annum. So if you're paying 5%, you're paying 100K. If interest rates come down to 3%, that would be 60K a year. So if your rate comes down from 5% down to 3%, 60K over what you're paying at 100K means that you've got an extra $40,000 per year as cash flow. If your properties that you're picking up that are $200,000 a piece and rent for $300 per week, after all expenses and whatnot, let's look at this, let's break the numbers down. So 200, 20% deposit would mean that you've got a 160K loan. 160K loan at 5% would be 8 grand per year, or $160 per week. If you're getting $300 a week, you still got $140 to pay for council, water, strata, whatnot. If there's neutral cash flow and suddenly your rates go down from 5% to 3%, you're saving on there 160, 3,200 per year extra in your pocket. Yeah. I'm drawing this on the board and I'm thinking about it as I'm saying it, guys. So draw the numbers out. You need to understand how the numbers work for you. For me, property investing, I've treated it like a business from day one. Need to have a plan, need to have a strategy in order to make it work. But how to retire in the GFD? If you have got a 200 grand property, 10 of them, which is $2 million, 5% interest, 100 grand a year, 3% interest, 60 grand a year, 40 grand savings there, there's 40 grand in your back pocket. If later on, after we get through this, we see the rents go from $300 to $350 per week, people might say, well, how can rents go up? Everyone's feeling broke. And look, we're in a deflationary period, guys. That's what we're hearing at the moment. But I still remember back in the early 2000s when out in Western Sydney, a rental property in Mount Druitt was $160, $180 per week, and now it's like $330, $350 a week. All we're saying is just increase that by $50 per week. Where would this come from? Well, now everybody's on Centrelink. You've got employers getting JobKeeper, you've got people that are unemployed getting JobSeeker. These stimulus measures are going to be around for a very, very long time. So looking in the current market, that's ultimately going to come with inflation. We've talked about inflation beforehand, but let's assume in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever. All you need to do is wait for those rents to rise, $50 a week, $100 a week, whatever it is, and have multiples. So ultimately, this is a position that if you've got 10 times 200K properties, interest rates, so let's assume that you've got 100% mortgages for the fun of it, which no advice there. I would normally look at doing 20% deposit, but just assume that you've got a $2 million mortgage. 1% rate cut would equal 20K per year better off. 2% rate cut, 40K a year. I've got $18.5 million debt, guys. Every 1% is 185 grand per year. As I've been saying for a very long time, I was excited to see this to come. Here we are in 2020, and we've got rate cuts coming, stimulus packages coming, and whatnot. If you had a portfolio of 10 properties at 200 grand, $2 million worth of asset, from a cash flow perspective, if you're saving on the interest rates, if the rents were to increase, this is a very similar period of time to when I was able to retire from the workforce. So I know a lot of investors at the moment which have $2 million worth of mortgage, $3 million worth of mortgage, $5 million. If you had $5 million worth of mortgage, interest rates come down by 1%, that's 50 grand a year in savings and interest. So, you know, you need to treat your property investing like a business. I'm going to make separate videos on this. So this is part 1 of how to retire in the GFD. I'll be making part 2 and part 3 just to keep these videos shorter and compressed and concise to the point. So one aspect is from interest rate reduction perspective, this is where we're at the moment. We'll catch up soon. I'll see you on the second video.